Okay, gang, so welcome to the last and hopefully final part of this tutorial. And while all this was loading, I took the liberty of adding the HTTP package. But for those of you who do not understand how to, it's just as simple as writing HTTP under your Cupertino icons, the semicolon, and just saving, or you can use this get package. Let me use that so we can all see. And I'm going to be looking at the attribute section. And note there's the pubspec.lock and there's the pubspec.yaml. This is the one you're going to use, and you're just going to add the code. Basically, it's just beneath the Cupertino icons, and once we're done, we'll be ready to go. And while this is working, I'm just going to show you some things I said we're going to be needing. Rec bin. By the way, this is how the app looks, and running pub get. If this is going to take a while, then okay, exit code 0, which means it has gone successfully and everything is working fine. Okay, I press Ctrl S. I think I did something, so yes. And with the pubspec this YAML, every touch you need to actually run the pub get. Now yes, so basic authentication, we used open source and the password was free for all. Now what I want to do is actually generate the Ajax code for the, okay, I need to put a URL. I'm just going to collect the URL from these sticky notes, and yes, I'm going to generate a JavaScript because Flutter cannot process your request. Let's do a a get request. Cannot process. This is new. um I'm just going to reload the whole page. Okay, site cannot be reached. Well, this exited successfully, so I'm just going to close this, and I'm guessing this is where we stopped. Just going to bring this a little bit closer, and this should run now. Yes, so URL, basic authentication, and what we're going to be the open source, which was our username, and the password was free for all. Okay, that was not even necessary, but I'm going to generate the code, and you see this is the username and this actually tells you the authorization process, and this tells you it's a basic authentication because there's a bearer token, basic authentication. So when you say basic, it lets the HTTP request know that it's the basic authentication, and then the username and password is encoded in a base 64. I don't know how to describe that, but just understand that that's the encoded level. So what you see here, the B the B3 BL blah blah blah. That's what's written here. But I'm going to explain how that is going to be used in. I'm going to explain how that is going to be used when connecting with Flutter. But before then, I'm going to show you. I'm going to open the database and show you something which would use at probably the end part of this tutorial. And while that is loading, what I'm just going to do is, okay, it's not loading, it's not taking time. Well, I did a restart, so everything is faster now. And what I'm going to show you is, for this person Abed, I purposely left the last name empty. There's a reason why, and I'm going to explain why I left that empty. Because with Flutter, uh, I'll try to explain it now, but I'll just let the whole work do the explanation for you. So this is centered now. If I should take this out, and it's performing the hot reload, you see it's no more centered. So I'll center this, and then in the material app section, I'm just going to remove this red flag, show the show oh, debug checked banner. Just gonna give that a false bool, so this red banner will go, and hopefully everything is going to be all right. And here we have. So everything we're going to be needing is actually in this sticky note. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to put this here. And now with Flutter, everything is, well, in case you're using Flutter, this is just how to connect it and get the data. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create a list called dev, or I should just call it developers, and it will be an empty list for now. And what I want to do next is create a future function. A future function actually waits to get the data. So I'm going to get HarperDB or Harper details. Whatever you want to call your function, you can call it. I'm just going to call it HarperDB. Get HarperDB, and this is an async function. And whenever you have an async, you definitely have to wait for something. So I'm going to call the URL, which is URI.pass. So we're going to pass the URL, which is basically this. Okay, first you have to put in a quotation mark, this, and then I'm going to create a string. Okay, the string will contain the basic authentication. You're just going to call this basic auth, and that will be equal to, so since it is a string, basic please write exactly the way it's saying. And most people tend to write this out, but I prefer copying. That seems more efficient and not prone to errors. Now I'm going to show you the errors I'm getting. Now the error I'm getting here is because this is small letter. The first letter in the list should be a capital letter, and these two, they've not been referenced. So this is actually a warning. This let me take you back. Let's make this. You see the red one, that's an error. This is actually a warning. You can do with warnings. And after we're done with the string for authentication, what we're going to do is we're going to call another variable. I'm just going to call it the response from the HarperDB from getting the URL. So this is going to be equal to, now this is what we'll wait for. We're going to wait for it to get. Now this normally is not going to work, the http.post, because I've not imported the HTTP package. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import HTTP and http.dat, and I'm going to call this as HTTP. Now when we come back here, I can use the http.post, and for those of you who maybe your system is slow like mine and you don't get the suggestion, all you can just do is press Ctrl and space, and it loads up suggestions. So URL, and when you post the URL, next thing you're going to be posting with that is a header, and the header is going to look something like this. So first off, the first thing is there's a space, authorization. Basically this would look exactly like basic authentication, basic auth, which is this. So it's basically, I'm basically saying this and this. I could easily interchange basic auth with this down here, but I just like using it that way. And if we go back to the code, the generated code, you see it's authorization, then basic, blah 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 blah. And next we're gonna have the body. So I'm just gonna add a comma, and then the body. The body is the part which takes in the operations, which was what you saw as content in the online API testing too. So the body is going to contain that, and SQL select star from conference, which was our schema name, dot users. Now all we just need to do is add a semicolon, which is the greatest error producer in JavaScript, I think. Sorry guys. And then when you're done with that, obviously this is a warning, but what I want to show you is we can print. Okay, I think I did that outside the scope of the function, but what we can do is we can print. Interesting, suggestion didn't come on its own, but we can print the response dot status code. We're going to put semicolon here, dot status code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this. Basically it's not going to have any effect here because this print is meant for the debug console. So I'm just going to print it, and we're just going to see if we get a status code of 200, which means everything went okay. Still not getting the status code. Interesting. Okay, I think my network is slow getting the information from the server, but while we wait on that, what I'm going to do next is okay, let's see, let's just print the body of the response. And the body should contain user the first name, last name, everything as it was in our database. Still connected. So. Okay, I see what's happening. What is actually going on is there is nothing calling this function the get HarperDB. So what we're going to do is underneath this, which is the class that extends, we're going to create a super instance, and we're going to let that call get HarperDB. And when I run this right now, you should get the details of this in the debug console. And in a minute, yep. So the status code is 200. That's the first thing we printed. And then what you have next in the Flutter section is basically the body, which is this. So if I should comment this out and I reload this, you're going to see all the status code 200 down there. Nice. Um okay, really don't need this anymore. So now what we're going to do is over here we're going to set, this is an empty list, so we're going to fill up that list with everything from this response, which is the username and everything that comes with it. So what we're going to do is it's just a set state, and please, you cannot use a set state for, you cannot use a set state for a stateless widget, a class with a stateless widget. This is stateful and this is stateless. You cannot use, well, you can, it's, you can't use it for a stateless widget. It's better you use it for a stateful widget. So what, just to avoid the errors of using set state in a stateless widget, because a stateless widget is, it assumes everything is created that way and nothing is going to change. So this, if this was in a stateless widget, it's going to assume that this developer is created in an empty set, and setting it here would not do anything. It has already rendered the screen. But a stateful widget is ready to accept new details. So I'm going to set this to developers will be equal to, now we have to decode, this because this is an object, it's not in raw form. So you have to decode this by saying just the decode, and what we want to decode is the body section of this. And if I should print this, I'd get the same thing, but one is an object and this is now a string. So since it has been decoded, we can use it in our Flutter app. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be tuning this out now. We don't need this anymore. Now I'm going to put it in a list view builder. Uh, List view builder. Yeah, this is what I was looking for. And item count simply is trying to know how many items are going to be in it, but since it's something we're not going to know the amount of items, we're just going to say the length of whatever is in this list, which is what we added from the API. So the length of it, make that the total amount of items you're going to show. And then index, you can just leave this the way it is. Now what we're going to return is a list style. Basically, if you're good with Flutter, you can return anything you want. Any widget can basically use this. So the list is going to be a text, the leading is a text, and it accepts basically strings, and this has been converted to a string. This JSON decoder has helped us convert it from an object to a string. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to write the developers and index, meaning every bit of it. And well, for this, I think we have, you're just going to call the row, you're just going to call the column name of any table and you would get it on your screen. So for this we have first name, so I'm just going to put first name first. Minimize this. First name, and I'm going to load this. Okay, there's already errors which I did not take a look at. Okay, this double comma, and I'm going to reload this now, and we're going to look at the debug console. Well, it's going to show on the screen here of the app. And it's still loading, and 1 2 3 4 5 6, just like we have it over here. Laulu, Anson, Abed, Austin, Cynthia, and Michael. So basically that's it. But then some of you might jump into errors like this. I'm going to show you, because this is a last name, but this place is left null for Abed. His last name is left null. And with Flutter, when you say something is going to be a string, it better be a string. It cannot be null. So if I was to do the same thing for last name, then I'd get an error. So it's good practice to, I'll show you the best practice to use for showing details, because if I should do this right now, you're going to see it gives Laulu Ansin, but when it gets to the next person, okay, I did not ask for this. When it gets to the next, it shows for Laulu and Ansin, but when it gets to Abed, you see null is not a subtype of null of string. So this is a string, but it's producing a null value. So what you want to do over here, and I'd advise you do the same for the first name section, is to Okay, so we're going to say developer, basically the same thing. I'd write it, but I'm going to use null safety. So I'm going to say if this is null, oh sorry, if this is null, then say null, or I could probably say anything I want, else actually give me the developer's name, last name, and I have an error. Where did I go wrong? Okay, I'm not supposed to put this. And if I should rerun this, now it's going to run well this time. Now the problem we had on the previous account was that now you see this is written as null because it knows, or I could say no last name, or last name not given. That sounds like a better message. Last name not provided. It seems like something the customer care will tell you, sir, your last name is not provided on our platform. So you see last name not provided, but for every other person you get that. And I could basically just add a list of things, and it just works perfectly like that. So this basically concludes how we can fetch data from HarperDB to our Flutter app easily, smoothly, and I think I've tackled most errors you come across. So I hope you follow this tutorial and you get the best results. Otherwise, you can leave a comment under the video, or I would create a GitHub repo for this, which I would like for you guys to create issues, and I'll try to tackle each of them as you bring them. Thank you for following this tutorial. My name is Collins again, and happy coding.